Great. So welcome to our section 6. And in this one, we're going to be going through chapter 18, which discusses websites. And then in the next one, we'll be going through the first chapter discussing social media. Now, there's a bit of differences between websites and social media we can cover too, but I think a combination of all of them is a very good way to make your business more successful. So why don't we jump into this? Today, you're going to be figuring out what the difference between static and dynamic marketing is with websites. For instance, a static channel, as they mentioned, like a brochure, is just something that contains information that won't change. A dynamic website might be something like a blog, where the information is updated and modified. Another thing that we're going to do, bullet point 2, is know how you can write content to optimize for organic search. And that's a really fancy way of saying you're going to figure out a way to put tags and stuff like that so that people who search for you on Google will get your website. For instance, if you're a glass installation company, you're going to use some keywords and optimize your pages so that people who are searching for you find you and not your competitors. Now, there's another guy down here, your content management system. That's going to give us a lot of benefits for these goals. And of course, we're just going to go through some strategies, legal implications, make sure you're not breaking the law when you're doing this. And then the best one is the SEO techniques that can help with your website. Great. So the website copy. Oh, and as a quick reminder, just don't want to be throwing us too off track here. There is another post in the participation form for session 6. On session 4, we kind of discussed a few items together that I counted for participation. And for session 5, I just took the quiz as participation. So if you did the quiz and submitted it, that was your participation. But for today, it's a very straightforward one. I don't think it should be too long, but that is there. So you can fill that out after we go over these. So everyone knows a sidetrack. Okay, cool. And anyway, so that question on the benefits of a website is up there. But another aspect of why you want an online hub for your information, or a static, or not even a static, but an online website, is to give the visitors to your website the best possible experience and to portray your brand and what you're trying to achieve in an effective manner. Now, there's a ton of benefits to a website. Lo and behold, the most one I would say is that it has a global reach because it is a worldwide web. Because it is worldwide, it will allow us to reach everywhere. And of course, if you're a contracting company that works in person, sometimes you might not want people over across the seas to be finding you. But of course, that's different if you have a company that ships out items and stuff as well. Content can be updated and amended, which is a very important one. It's very easy on your website to make it your own, so you have full control over everything that's there and will be posted. You can make it more visible with those SEO techniques that we spoke about earlier. And then, of course, we have a Google Analytics, which allows us to see how effective our SEO and our website is. But in general, it's a dynamic way to share information to a lot more people than normal. Great. Now, this question seems to be answered to us right away, but I think this is an important one as well. And this is something we spoke about a bit before, too. You usually want to try to keep a consistent brand and a tone of voice. However, you don't want to be writing like you would on your website on a Twitter post or anything, if that makes sense. If you are writing a Twitter post for 250 words and you're making it like an About Us page on your website, people might be taken a bit aback. It might be a bit too much. So usually you want to change your tone of voice based on the materials, but you don't want to lose sight of your core values and your message. And again, your tone of voice and key messages, as we mentioned, should be consistent, but how you write them should vary. Great. Now, your website should have a way to reassure visitors or make it, or make the visitors understanding of what your goal is. You want to make sure that you have key messages on your website to show what the concept is, and I think if I pull up that watches.com website again, if we go here, as I load in immediately, you can see here that immediately, well, it's already a sale thing, but you can see here there's a Mother Day sale, but all the images are very large and very high quality. So even without telling me that these people are trying to go for very expensive and very nice quality watches, they show that to me with just how they laid out their website. And this is only through images and through text. And as you can see here, this looks a lot better than a website that goes about asking me for or telling me my mission straight away. They kind of jump into what they're all about. So that's an aspect of quickly reassuring visitors. Whatever key message or content you want to get across, you want to put it on your front page. You don't want to hide that, right? Because that's the point of the person being there. If I knew one of us, one student picked the Buzz Bowl Creamery here in Chicago, which is a really cool one. And they're combining new techniques to make ice cream. And they have that on their website right away. So there's some cool aspects of that as well. Of course, that could always be improved upon too. But having that idea that you need to show off what you're about right away is important. Now, your website voice and tone, it's up to you on how you want to do this. You can make your website a bit like Twitter or YouTube or anything like that as well if you don't want to have a ton of information on that. But in general, your core values, actions, and messages should come into play here. Now, as another reminder, don't use the third person form. Don't say them or they. Always relate the visitors to you as well, we or you. If you say you in your sentences, you're directly addressing the visitor. So make sure you do that. And of course, make sure that they are comfortable in the website. Let's see here. Great. Awesome. And here's another important thing is that when you are on your website writing, there's two people you got to deal with. The human who's going to see it, and then this robot, or essentially the web crawler, that is going to try and find your website based on what people search for. So again, if someone searches watches, the robot is going to try to figure out which websites have watches and return it to them. So you also need to write for that robot, because if you don't have your website properly formatted or optimized, the robot won't find it. And if the robot won't find it, the human won't be able to find it either. Okay, they're joining in. And of course, both are very important. Human is usually a primary concern when you're writing. You don't need to write like gibberish for the robot or anything. They don't want to see how the search engine found them, but that definitely doesn't mean that you should forget about the search engine. Great. And of course, here's some information that's straightforward about the website, but essentially you have your personality on the website, the brand you want, and then you have everything up front for the visitor. Great. So now, my background was in computer science, and I did a lot of coding throughout the years here. But even now, with all the experience, it's kind of crazy to build a website from scratch, meaning that you're going to bring up the HTML code from nothing and then keep typing it. So what we use instead of building it from scratch, because as you know, if the wheel is invented, it's no good to try and reinvent it again. Use what is already available to you to help boost yourself. It is a content management system. So of course, the content management system is a way to organize your website content with the proper look and feel for the brand. A developer codes the site, and then the website owner or you will take over whatever the site is, and you can have control of it. You might have heard of a few. You can say in the chat as well. You can speak out if you've heard a few of them. But one that you might have heard of Squarespace. If you heard of Squarespace, Squarespace is one that you can build up on a website. So those are always interesting too. A cool thing about a CMS is that you can change elements of your site, and then you can also add in some default templates that they have. Let me see if I can give you a solid example here. Put that to the side. Great. Then, of course, there's a bunch of them. WordPress is a very famous one. I'm very familiar with that one. Drupal's another good one. But these are all content management systems that you can use to host on your website. And of course, there's even drag and drop building websites as well, which are useful too. Great. Now, if you see here, CMS, as we just said, are very ranging. So I use WordPress because my background was in coding and stuff, and I kind of figure out that a bit better because you're kind of given a lot more freedom with what you do. But there's also something with Wix and Squarespace, which is plug and play. And Wix is a really interesting one. I think I used it a few times. There we go. And as you can see here, it's essentially a drag and drop website builder that does the majority of the work for you. And as you can see here, you can, there's website templates. And all of these are just default templates that you can use to put up on your website. So you can see here, there's a fitness one. There's a construction company one. There's some meditation ones, graphic designer. There's ones that are for portfolios, a consultant, a personal website. Car garage is good as well. So there's a lot you can pick from here. And not one is necessarily better than the other. It's up to you. If you want to have something way more customizable, WordPress is good, but Wix and Squarespace are just as good too. Great. Now, if you're going to go about on your website and how you go about writing it, the main thing you want to do at the start, which is a problem I had as well with website creation, is you just want to get all the information out there as possible. Don't care about the format or how it's going to look just yet. You just want to, as it says here, brain dump everything in your head about your business onto your website. Awesome. So now after you have all the information about yourself that you want in your website, if you brain dumped everything on there, the next question you need to say is, what is the question that makes people buy from my business or to look at my website? What is going to make someone think that I'm a bit different? And then that's where you will talk about your services. So you're going to talk about if you offer protection. If you're an online consultant, you might show your portfolio of previous work to impress the client. And then after you do all of this, after you have all of the information of your website up, and then you have the services that you provide up, you're going to look for keywords and phrases. And then these keywords and phrases you'll find will occur naturally when you're trying to talk about yourself. For instance, I talked about a glass company earlier. So another keyword that occurred a lot when I was creating that website was glazing construction or glazing installation. Glass installation, stuff like that. So those are keywords that you can just remember on the side of your head, or also take notes of, in order to help optimize your search engine. If you have the Buzz Bull Creamer again, because that one stuck in my head, was the nitrogen gas that they used to create it. That's another keyword. If you look at watches, you probably will find keywords in the watches as well. So just make sure you keep those phrases in mind. And now, after you've gone through the process of unloading the information, getting your services across, and figuring out your keywords, you can then figure out your layouts. So this is where you would make your About Us page, the Contact Us page, split stuff into something that looks nice. And of course, shape your introductory paragraphs in your pages, make them look nice, have your benefits and your keywords a part of those pages too. And then, of course, in those pages, try to make sure that you are getting across the point of what makes you stand out a bit and what makes the customer want to buy from you. Great. And then, of course, writing tips as well. Sometimes you can get repetitive with some words, so you can get stuck into a certain way of speaking. So always use stuff that's a bit different. Use some synonyms. Always use stuff to help avoid repetition. Great. And as well, if you have acronyms or anything for your website, use those in the start. And then your taglines or short quotes are a great way in your pages to kind of shake up how it looks as well. On your services page, if you are an online consultant offering different services, on your services page, you might have a few quotes from customers speaking about how good you were when you were working with them and stuff like that. There's a very important part here with cross-selling, which means essentially have one piece of information leads to another. this makes your entire website a bit more holistic and fully functioning, and it allows users to appreciate it a bit more, I think. And of course, think about how your services interact with each other. And then the essentially is, if you like this one, you may also like this approach for it. So, for instance, if you're doing the glazing company that I spoke of as well, if you like installing mirrors in your bathroom, you might want a bedroom mirror as well, then upgrade. You might have other mirrors that you need to be updated as well. So that idea of we did this, we could also do that as well is very impressive to the customer. And it kind of is what makes the customer have a repeat transaction with you, because they're not going to ask for the exact same product again if it's like a one-time off deal. Of course, this idea isn't the same across every website, but the idea of having one information lead to another is very important. And remember, don't forget about, because I actually forget about this a lot as well, Sullivan would remind me, is your call to action, right? Make sure that you figure out what you want the user to do on their end, and make sure that you keep it simple, because you know everyone is in a rush nowadays. So make sure that you tell them either get into touch, or you say buy now to get the discount, buy now to get free shipping, and stuff like that in order to make the customer do something. Great. And again, conciseness and relevance is very important for everything. A personal website, you might talk a bit about yourself a bit more. It's a bit different for how you want to do it for each one, but nothing crazy. Don't do an entire essay on these guys, because people just want to read information a bit quickly. And there's also another one for tools called readability indexes that figure out how easy it is to read your copy. What these do is give you a US grade level required to read the copy. So essentially, that will tell you whoever's reading it should have a grade level of this amount. So again, that's very important for your website, right? If you are applying, or excuse me, if you are trying to appeal to a certain brand of individuals, you might want to keep your grade level at a certain amount. Or if you're trying to go for everyone, you might want to keep it a lot lower. And here's the most important one: get someone else to read stuff, because you will make mistakes. I can guarantee it, because after you type the same paragraph 4 times in different places, it's going to get a bit repetitive. So always make sure that you figure out, have another set of eyes to look at stuff. Great. And again, your copy tips that I would like to just look at here. Make sure that you have your personality there and your brand. Make sure that you maintain a consistent type of personality. If you're a very friendly, upbeat personality, make sure it's like that. If you're a very serious and stoic personality on your website, make it look like that. Make sure your grammar is pretty well. People, if they see mistakes or anything, will probably think less of the website. Make sure you have it around 250 to 350 words, which is around what we've been doing for our projects. And then, of course, your call to actions. Make sure people know what you want them to do. Great. Now, here's where things get a bit scary with the legal compliance. If you're trying to get payment details from them, if you're trying to access their emails, make sure that you are aware of the legal compliance that you have. And it's all online as well to access it. But make sure that you are aware that you need to be up to date with current data protection and stuff like that as well. So this is something that is another important thing to brainstorm before you make your website. Do you want to deal with legal compliance issues with getting emails through a newsletter, getting contact information as well? All that is important to debate. And most of the time, depending on the business you have, you will need to get access to something. So you do want to make sure that you have some form of the legal compliance idea down. You might have seen a few of these as well. If you sign up for like a website or anything, it says check here to agree to the terms of policy. So in that terms and policy is what the user will agree to. Usually, I mean, at least for me, I never read them that much, but some people might. But in general, you want to make sure that you have your terms and conditions. A cookie alert, which says this site uses cookies. Some of you might have seen that on websites before. And now there's one here called an SSL certificate. And what that means is it's essentially a way if you look at our Moodle page very quickly, I'll show you guys this. So this is our Moodle page, and you might see up here I have my URL, but you'll see that there's a little lock up here, and if I click that, that's actually my certificate, and I can actually look at this certificate from Moodle. So this certificate information is an SSL certificate. It's issued to learning.csi now, and it's valid from 423 to 722. So this means that I'm safe with whatever information that's here because this is encrypting it. And as you can see here, the issuer is Let's Encrypt. So there's a lot of encryption going on. And it looks a bit high level, but essentially it's just protecting your data. And you can see that on all the websites. So if you're on a website and you don't see a lock here, don't put any of your information in there because it will get absorbed by something else. Not to get too scary there. Great. So I'm going to put this link into the supplemental resources. But if you'd also like, actually, let me, whoopsie daisy, sorry everyone. Let me grab this into the page. I'll do that in a little second. But what I wanted to talk about too is SEO. And essentially that is your search engine optimization. They called the search engine spiders, but we called it a robot earlier as well. So essentially you're trying to optimize the information so that the robot that is trying to find your website to give to the user that's searching for it is going to be able to locate it. Great. And essentially what you need to do to raise your SEO is what you actually type in your website. So your About Us, that paragraph that we typed earlier, is important for the robot. Hi, Outram, welcome. Welcome. I am recording the lecture from the start, so if you guys missed a bit, you can always rewatch it. Excuse me. But in general, your how you write your website and also how the robot will go about looking for it is important. And essentially, let's see here. Let me see if I can get you one more. Sorry, everyone. Maybe I'm doing an overkill with the examples here. But I just typed in class installation. And as you can see here, these guys are popping up. Yelp pops up a bit more too. But as you can see, I have this website Glassworks that pops up before Glass Inc. That pops up before Glass Doctor. And so all of these guys have SEO and search engine optimizations, and their pages are built up in certain ways. But it might just look a bit, the way that they have it might be laid out a bit different so that they're pushed up a bit more. The number one thing that you want to do with your website, though, is you never, ever want to be on the second page, right? Because no one ever goes to the second page, let alone the third one. So you want to make sure that whatever website you're building, you pop up on your first page here, because that's where people are going to look. Great. So if you have an engaging copy of a website, you have a rich content on there. So you have very nice website content, and you have proper SEO techniques, which we're going to get into. You're going to have a higher website profile. You're going to be up in that Google rankings, and you're going to get more visitors. And as you get more visitors, it will push you up more. And it's kind of like a spiral effect. Now, this is one thing I want to reiterate until you guys are bored of hearing it, is keywords are crucial for you. You need to make sure that you know what the keywords are with your website. As again, I talked about the glass installation. It might be glazing, mirror installation. Glass installation is going to be a keyword for the glass companies because that's what people look for. People are going to say mirror replacement. So a keyword on your website might be mirror fixing or mirror replacement. And then a robot will go out and say, oh, this website has a keyword that says mirror replacement. So I'm going to grab that website and give it back to the user. These spiders we talked about them as robots. You can think of them as robots or spiders, but essentially the search engine is going to check your keywords and addresses in a bunch of areas, in the titles, in headings, and then the amount of keywords on the page. And then it's going to return the websites based on how relevant those occurrences are. You can help yourself with some of these keyword information things by using stuff like Google AdWords. There's really nice websites out there that help make you keywords too. And some of them help out by saying, what is your company's idea? And then they might give you some keywords based on that. Remember, you want quality content. Make the words yourself, but make them relevant and well written, and make them unique as well. That's important, and it's kind of hard to do it uniquely sometimes, but you'll find a way. Make sure you don't copy and paste stuff, because if you copy and paste someone else's words onto your website, it's going to give that other person's websites up more, because it's going to take into account their content and then their keywords. Also, that is illegal, so don't do that either. Remember, keep updating your website and make it not too static. Of course, that means you don't need to completely overhaul your website all the time, but maybe add a few blog posts to it, make sure it looks okay, and make sure that it's maintained. Great. Make sure for the robot as well, and just for people's sakes, that in the URL, which is at the very top, you have a visible thing of what they're looking at. As this example goes, if you're selling bath time products and you're on a line of rubber ducks or plastic ducks, the URL will have plastic ducks inside of it as well, just to make sure that people know what they're looking at and that the robot can find it. Great. And now we have a page title here. And essentially with your title tag at the start, you're going to want to put in some of those keywords. So you might put in glass installation in there or glass glazing and stuff as well. And then, of course, what pops up here is for the robot is it will be the title on the page in the search results. Essentially, if we go back to our glass installation one, and again, this example is a bit more tough to show off if we're not looking at the actual code. But as you can see here, Glass Works, Chicago Glass, custom glass installation. And then Lakeview Glassing, Glass and Mirror Shop. There's a lot of glass inside of there as keywords. So you can see here that glass is a keyword that you need a lot of. And then installation is probably another one. Now, awesome. Let's see here. Great. And now, sorry everyone. Right, and then your keywords, a part of the title, should also be relevant to the content that you have as well. There's items called headings and subheadings, but essentially, if your title of one of your pages is installation services, make sure you have some keywords in there too. Great. And then keyword density. Make sure that you don't just spam all the keywords that you figured out one after the other. They call it keyword stuffing, and that will actually harm your rank because it will look a bit odd on the user's end, and then the robot might not find it as easily. Great. There's items called inbound links or backlinks, and those are links to your website from other ones. If you have a very reputable website, or even on YouTube, maybe you might your website might be on a YouTube video, and they have a link in the description. Make sure that those inbound links are very high quality. If those links link to your main page, make sure that you have a very nice main page. Make sure that you have that SSL certificate we talked about with the protection, and make sure that they all look high quality. Anchor text is a way to describe a link within the text of a web page. So for example, if you have if you have sorry, you might see this. Let's see here. It's the same as what I do here. This could be considered an anchor link. If you see up here, my participation guide, if you open up that link, it's to a new item here. So anchor links are essentially pieces of text that link you to the website. So enjoy non-toxic plastic ducks for bath fun time or bath time fun. You might have that linked. So when someone clicks on that, it will take them to their website for selling plastic ducks. And essentially, don't use the same keywords for everything. Try to mix it up and make it a bit more unique. Great. Now, here's another really important one that's actually a bit more easy to do is that you might want to make your website a bit more mobile responsive, meaning that people on iPads or iPhones can also use it too. And there's lots of information out there on how to do that. What I would say though is make sure your website looks really well and formatted, and then you can go about making it a bit more responsive on mobile. This is what we talked about earlier, but we need an SSL certificate if you're going to collect information from anyone. If you have a HTTPS, which means secure, that really shows that you're taking security seriously and that people are much more likely to trust your website. See here. And also, if you do not have a secure website, if you only have the HTTP, some people are not going to be looking at it, and the search engine might ignore it too. Great. Also, inside of your site, you might embed other links. So maybe in your home page at the very bottom, you might say, find out more about our plastic ducks. If you click on that, it'll take you to that page. And here's another thing is the alt keyword. If you have pictures on your website and sometimes the pictures don't load, it might have an alt tag, which means that this is going to load instead. What that means as well is that, again, the robots and spiders can't see the pictures, but it still helps with the keyword and making your content more visible to that robot. If you have a visually impaired person looking at your screen as well, it's also necessary to have an alt tag. And then, of course, keywords should always, I would say, as you said earlier, the first thing that you need to do on your website is dump your information. So whatever you want to get out there, just throw it all down. But the second thing you need to do is figure out your keywords. And after you figure out your keywords, you could keep going on to write your copy. Okay, and here's another important one is metadata. Metadata is a way to have a lot of description on what your data is, and search engine users will see this in the search result. And as an example of this, let me go back to our glass installation example. The metadata might be right here. Glassworks is your resource for the best in quality Chicago glass products. Click here to learn more about our shower enclosures, mirrors, and other glass, right? Very nice and well-made metadata. And as you can see here, we have links. These are your anchor links that take us to the other places, and that's our metadata. And as you can see, there's lots of keywords. And if everyone notices it, the robot that I typed in to search for is also highlighting the keywords that I'm looking for. So glasses is highlighted. Installation is highlighted here. So the robot does work, and that's why these are important to do here. Great. A sitemap is a really easy way to just navigate your map. It's usually a navigation bar at the top or just a way that users can see how you can move across it. Most people are pretty intuitive nowadays with websites. Make sure that your headings and titles are different than the text data. That also helps with the robot. The robot will look at headings and titles instead of content itself sometimes to make sure that the keywords are correct. If you use hyphens in your, if you use hyphens in your URL, it makes it easier for robots to read it in. So that's another little tip. And now, if you have a very large website with lots of unique content and relevant pages, it might help out a bit more for the robot too. If you have more content, there's more keywords a part of it, and then there's more chances that you might get stuck on by that robot. And then, of course, before we finish up with all the benefits of this, there's ways that we can damage our SEO ranking as well. If you have a pretty poorly designed website with a badly coded web design, either it looks bad or it's difficult to navigate, that's going to hurt your website on the user's end. Make sure that you have a well-developed one. If you're not having fresh content on your website constantly, you're going to drop in the rankings because you just lose up to date, and people who are updating with new content and tags will overtake you. Make sure that all the sites that help link to your site and third parties are appropriate and relevant. Make sure that they're on reputable sites. You don't want to be related to some sites that aren't that good. If you don't have a lot of text or if you don't have any information that you haven't talked about in depth, it's going to look a bit worse as well. And make sure you don't do any keyword stuffing, which is where your keyword density goes over 10% on any page, or meaning that you just keep typing in keywords that it almost seems weird. You are trying to just get the robot to grab the page, but the reason that we're trying to get the page is for a user to read it. So if a user tries reading a keyword stuff page, it's going to be a bit odd. Here's another one called Flash. Flash was that player that you might see being deprecated. And a few pages have been built with it. I don't think this one is as bad because a lot of people are keeping this up to date with other websites. But just make sure that whatever you're using isn't deprecated. Make sure all your links are working. Everything that you click to download works. There's nothing more frustrating than being on a website and the links don't work or something weird is going on. It really damages your chances. Make sure it's responsive, that you can read it on the tablets. Make sure you can read it on mobile. And then, of course, make sure you have that SSL certificate to ensure that you have security and that individuals aren't nervous of going on the website. And finally, pop-ups, which are something that could annoy or irritate people, can be very irritating. They could also show a bit of success. But also another thing is that you don't want to use too many pop-ups, I think, because there's also ad block. I'm not sure if anyone here uses it, but there's a lot of programs out there for ad blocking, and ad block might block a pop-up. And if the pop-up is asking someone to sign up or to approach you at a later date, then your call to action is being blocked and it's not as effective. Awesome. Let's see here.